Hey guys, so I thought I would do this kind of video format for now because I don't want to have to spend time setting up my initial setup that I usually have in my upstairs office, as currently there's just a lot of stuff happening. And I just was hoping to get this sort of idea out as the more time goes on, I start to understand a bit more and agree with most people about the perspective things that I never thought I would expect. So what am I talking about? So I think a lot of people seem to who grew up in the 90s or the early 2000s understand when it comes to cartoons. Like you guys probably grew up with a lot of cartoon shows that have been put on like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, and then maybe Disney Channel if they had anything decent on that was aimed towards older kids. But like usually like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon had stuff that was aimed more towards older kids, like kids between the ages of 7 and 12. And they were pretty decent. They had a good following. People will always it gave kids a reason to get up on Saturday to watch new episodes or reruns if they had it, depending on what's going on in the week. I know I have some experience, although I grew up around the time of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, but I never got to watch anything on there as much because we didn't have cable. We still don't have cable. So the only time I ever got to watch like Cartoon Network stuff or Nickelodeon stuff is if I was either at a friend's house or a relative's house who did have cable, or I was staying at a hotel. And usually most of the time it was due to staying at a hotel, which wasn't bad. But you know, I grew up watching a lot of cool stuff that obviously was going up at the time. And given the current state of the cartoon situation stuff, it's abysmal. All right. And there's been a lot of people on the internet who brought up a very good, I wouldn't say topic, what's the word? Very good implication or realization. And that has to do with the new Nickelodeon show that's premiering in about a week and a half called The Fairly Odd Parents: A New Wish. Now, I know everyone knows that The Fairly Odd Parents has been one of the most recognized show in Nickelodeon since the early 2000s. I mean, Butch really kicked it out of the park when he created the show. In fact, that was his introduction into Nickelodeon, which then became, I guess, his forever home that wasn't like Cartoon Network or Disney, because the guy had said he's been bouncing from place to place. But Fairly Odd Parents is what landed him the job there. And the show had been basically going on for a few years, and then it's been on and off a few times as, you know, Butch was actually creating other shows for Nickelodeon that were also great hits that also gave Nickelodeon the face that it needed. And quite honestly, I'm not a diehard Butch Hartman fan, nor am I an apologist, but when Butch left Nickelodeon, that was basically the downfall of Nickelodeon as a cartoon show, because as of right now, if you go on their lineup of stuff, all it consists of is the Loud House and SpongeBob. That's it. And I'm having a hard time believing that that's what makes the money. I think those are the only shows that they have yet to run out of ideas of, but they have to keep milking it, because if they get rid of either of those shows or both of those shows, Nickelodeon's done. Because all they really consists of is just Nick Jr. stuff and live action things that are not memorable, which is not what Nickelodeon was about. Not even the early '90s or the early 2000s. Maybe the mid 2000s, maybe when Drake and Josh was starting out, and then you got iCarly, which was basically was a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, other than that, like you probably would get like movies and such from that. But other than that, let's go back to the topic at hand about the new Fairly Odd Parents show. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is not the first sequel spin-off series that Nickelodeon has produced for the Fairly Odd Parents. There was another show back in 2021 that was called Fairly Odd Parents Fairly Odder, which was the combination of 2D animation mixed with live action characters. And it only lasted for a season. Now, at the time of this was showing, Butch had been Butch was Butch was no has been was away from Nickelodeon for a few years now. Like I think he left in 2018, and the show was put out in 2001. So he'd been away for 3 years, but he was in part of the production of that show, as it was most likely part of his contract. Like he probably understood that he obviously he still had a lot of work that he could do for Nickelodeon, but he couldn't do it at the capacity of an employee. He had to be an independent contractor, which, by the way, is what a lot of people these days are doing, which I think is a great idea, because I think Zach Hazel, who is known as Sack of Pebbles on YouTube, created an adult swim show called Smiling Friends. Now, he is not now we all know, as far as I know, he's not an employee of Cartoon Network. He's more than likely under a contract he's an independent contractor for Cartoon Network to produce the show. So basically, once they say we no longer can produce the show anymore, therefore we've done all the contract, therefore it's done, then and just bye-bye. That's what happens when you're an independent contractor. They have both the independent contractor and the network have a lot more freedom to do whatever they want. Okay? And I feel that that's what Butch is doing, okay? Because the new Wish series has been in production for 2 years, since 2022. So this show, they possibly have been doing this since the failure of their live action show, which was, by the way, has been scrubbed from their network for good reason. But because again, people always try to say, like, oh, like the shows of Butch's were great when Butch wasn't in charge. And like, well, if you're talking early Butch, then you don't make any sense. But if you're talking like maybe late Butch, like near the end of his Nickelodeon career Butch, you might have a point. Don't get me wrong, okay? Butch has created good shows when he was working at Nickelodeon. It looked like he directed a lot of good stuff when he was there. The only problem is that, it's a bit lackluster as time went on, as maybe he wanted to do more stuff and he kept getting distracted, but I don't know. The guy was being stretched thin when he was being produced. Now, why am I bringing up this? People have been pointing out the fact that they're hating on the idea that the new Wish is not the original. People want the original back, which I can understand, but that show needs to die. And I always point out the fact that Butch created other shows too. He created Danny Phantom and Tough Puppy, which, by the way, both of those shows aired during the time that Nickelodeon was still prominently going strong. It wasn't until like the late 2010s where it started to sort of drop off. And Nickelodeon just became the SpongeBob SquarePants channel, not like the Fairly Odd Parents channel or the Jimmy Neutron channel or something like that. Where it's like, oh, you got more shows. It's kind of like it's the current state of cartoons channels now is abysmal now. But people have brought up an idea that the fact that they are creating another sequel spin-off series of the Fairly Odd Parents, but more in its traditional continuity in a way that it was made, is basically an admission that the networks know that the late 90s and the early 2000s had great cartoons. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense. It does. We had decent cartoons in the old days. All right. Now I get the idea that you got to keep moving on with the times. You got to evolve. But quite honestly, it all depends on who's doing it. Okay. I've seen shows after shows that seem to be created by people who they do Tumblr art and or like weird like don't weird shipping fan fiction that doesn't go anywhere. Like, don't get me wrong, I read shipping fan fiction before of a lot of shows, but at least they focus on the shipping characters, but they had a story to tell. Most of the time, it's just people trying to exert their weird fantasy because like they didn't see it in the show or whatnot. Like then trying to do a weird shipping that doesn't make a lot of sense because there was no chemistry. But anyway, I digress. Yes, we had decent cartoons, and if we had to look back, and this might be because I'm getting old, but yeah, we had decent cartoons to look up. And in fact, Cartoon Network is actually following in that footsteps because they are doing a new lineup of cartoons on MeTV. They're introducing Warner Brothers shows that were produced in the 90s, like Freakazoid. Here's it. I wasn't born when Freakazoid was a thing. I wasn't born when actually, I can't remember, but I know what the Animaniacs were, but I don't think I ever remember watching the show. I don't think I was even alive when the show was actually produced. And hold on, let me actually check real quick. Okay, sorry. So I did a quick Google search, and the Animaniacs show was produced in 1993 and ended in 1998. So by the time it ended, I was 4 years old. I had no idea about the whole idea about cartoons or whatnot. I think when I was 4, I was pretty much watching baby stuff because I wasn't old enough to watch it. But you get what I'm saying, okay? Like, the shows like that are getting revived in this day and age, okay? I don't want to say this considering the terrible PR that the network has been doing, but say what you want about Disney. At least they're putting out stuff. They're putting out new stuff almost every year. They're doing revivals now. They already brought back X-Men, and apparently the X-Men 97, and it looks like they're going to be doing more seasons of that. And then they're doing a new season of Phineas and Ferb, not a sequel series, but an additional season to the original show. Now, Phineas and Ferb, I can remember, came out in the 2000 era. I remember Phineas and Ferb. I couldn't watch it as, again, we didn't have cable, therefore we didn't have access to Disney or Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon on our television. And we only had limited screen time on the internet. So the only time I ever got to watch those shows is if I go on the family computer, go to their site and watch what episodes have been produced or have been released onto their site. And that was how I knew about them. So back to the topic at hand. The fact that Nickelodeon, two things. One, the fact that Nickelodeon is doing a new Fairly OddParents show in a capacity that is recognizable to the predecessor is basically saying that two things. One, yes, this is an admission that Nickelodeon understands that 2000 cartoons that were produced in the 2000s and 2010s had great cartoons to watch. And two, they still, despite what they feel about Butch Hartman, Butch created some decent shows that basically landed Nickelodeon on the map that way that it did. But I think at this point, for Butch Hartman's sake, if he were to, I don't think Butch Hartman should create another show for Nickelodeon unless they're going to offer him a contract. I think what needs to happen is that he shouldn't go back to his old job, and I don't think that's even possible, but you just never know. I think what they need to do is that Butch Hartman had had near 2012 said he had like 4 pilot shows that he was given to do. Like Nickelodeon came and said, "Hey, you need to do 4 pilot shows." And at the time, he was working on Fairly Odd Parents and Tough Puppy, and basically basically. I think that was when he realized that he created 4 shows that were what Nickelodeon was based off of, and they only went for one of them. And the 4th one was Benson is a Beast, which was his last Nickelodeon show he produced before he left. So he's still sort of working with Nickelodeon in capacity when they do this show. And honestly, I watched the trailer of the new Fairly Odd Parents show. It doesn't look terrible. I've seen terrible, and at least it's not SpongeBob or The Loud House. And I do hope that this show does good enough to spawn ideas at Nickelodeon, where it's like, okay, people still like the 2000 shows. Maybe we should look at Butch's other past shows and bring them back, because again, I can even tell you all Nickelodeon has to do is hire people like me, and I can tell them, like, look, give me 10 minutes to go on the internet. I'll search up fandoms. I'll show you what people want, and then we can go from there. All right? Because a lot of his shows that he produced at Nickelodeon are good, and they are still good. In fact, you go on Paramount Plus on the live streaming hubs, they are showing the complete series of the original Fairly Odd Parents nonstop, along with SpongeBob and The Loud House. And he's getting paid for that, by the way, because I guess because of some legal mumbo jumbo. But yeah, people are learning that what people want is already been made, but they want to see more of it. That's what I want. You have good stuff. You had good stuff. You just didn't do anything with it because you were too busy worrying about what the current times are. Listen, I understand. To quote South Park, where it's like, look, we look forward to the future, but can we enjoy the present just a little longer? Like, if you're going to milk people, I really think this is true, but people are tired of this. They're tired of Nickelodeon spamming SpongeBob and the Loud House. They're tired of Cartoon Network spamming just Teen Titans Go, because they're the safest way to not be canceled. I'm sorry, but this younger generation, people who are like 10 years younger than me, I'm not saying there's a lot of them, but the most loudest ones are the ones who don't watch cartoons. In fact, they don't even spend time in front of a television or in front of a television. You're watching live television or watching stuff streaming. They don't. Why? They're too busy protesting outside or trying to find things to hate on. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. There are people out there. Let's go back 15 years in the past, which would be 2009. There are kids today, okay, who are 15 years old, okay, that look back and sort of remember the cartoons produced. Like, actually, let's go further back. Let's go, there are kids who are 15 or 10 or 15 years younger than me, and they would rather see old content come back in some capacity. Okay? Because that's just the way it is. I'm sorry. So if anyone sees this, I agree with you on the fact that the new Wish is coming out. It's just an admission that the network is realizing that that people like the old stuff. We had decent cartoons. And quite frankly, we don't need anything original currently. the old stuff, there is still stories to tell. All right? I always had this idea that if Nickelodeon or Paramount, whoever is in charge, brought me on and said, Justin, what do you think is what do you think we should do for our lineup? And I said, well, you can do two things actually. And I know you're not going to like them, but you may not like them because who may be involved with, but I guarantee you it would like spawn, it would re-spark fandoms and maybe spark new fandoms if you like it. I think you need to do a sequel series of Danny Phantom and do maybe a couple more seasons of Tough Puppy. Okay, I understand that they are Butch Hartman's work, and there's a lot of things that you don't like about Butch Hartman, but you gotta admit, he created decent cartoons that at least are memorable today. I remember a few Nickelodeon shows. I remember a few that were produced around the time that I could remember them, but I can't off the top of my head because they're just not memorable. I don't even know if some of them were not Nickelodeon shows or Cartoon Network shows. But guys, let me say this. We shouldn't have to wait for someone off the internet like YouTube or Tumblr to produce something. Okay? And it's usually shows that are aimed more towards adults. I say this. We don't need to worry about like Nick Jr. or Disney Jr. Shows anymore. We don't. We need the older kids, the kids who are growing out of their baby stuff and trying to be more cool, trying to be more adventurous. We need shows that aim more towards them. So I say, let's start this and say, let's make cartoons great again. Let's just do that because, quite honestly, we don't need to worry about politics. We don't need to worry about politics or real world issues at the moment. We just need a good distraction. So guys, I know this one's a bit winded, but I wanted to get this out of the way because I've been talking about this with my dad, and my dad sort of agrees with me, and he brought up something very interesting, okay? With all the things I've just talked about, he said, here's a fact. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. The entertainment industry is changing. Sometimes it goes in waves. Okay, sometimes it will stay stagnant in the middle. Sometimes it will remain at a low point for a decent time. But there are times where it will start rising and rising and rising and it hit its top peak at that moment. We need to start seeing a rise and maybe a rise and stay at the top. Because why? The competition is meek. The competition is meek. People are talking about X-Men at the moment. They don't care about SpongeBob. They don't care about Loud House. And even then, Nickelodeon has already said they're doing another Loud House movie. People aren't talking about that. They're talking about the X-Men. Currently at Disney and all that stuff. And currently there's nothing going on at Cartoon Network that's new. But in all seriousness, guys, let's make cartoons great again. Because I think that would basically put everyone at ease. I think that's something that you can grade on. What we need to do is that we need to make the weekday cartoons decent enough to keep us busy throughout the week so we can aim towards the weekend and kind of do the exact same method. Or if we're just waiting for time to go by, especially during the summer vacations, for those who are, who are on summer vacation and have to wait until the new school year starts. And maybe something decent to come home to after a good day, long day's work. But guys, let me know what you guys know in the comments below. In this particular video, I would like some feedback. I would like people to come in and talk about the stuff, what they think they should happen. Because honestly, we need engagement on this. So let me guys, what you guys think. Please leave a comment down below. Share this video with others because we need to get this. We need to get this spread out more. And if you guys enjoy this kind of video, please subscribe because subscribing really helps. And without further ado, guys, I hope you guys are doing both mentally and physically well. And I hope all of you just do well for the upcoming future. Because again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We just got to be patient. So without further ado, guys, take care, stay healthy, stay positive, stay happy. If you guys feel depressed, always look out to talk to friends or family. and I will see all of you in the next video. Take care.